All right, there was a lot of things that was going on in the United States. People were mobilizing, trying to get things ready for the military. Women were going back to work, or going to work, I should say. There was people planting gardens called victory gardens. There was a lot of posters that were being produced to encourage a lot of patriotism. One of the ugly things that went on here, though, in the United States, and we need to be able to talk about this, was the Japanese-American internment camps that happened. This happened in 1942, shortly after we declared war on Japan. There was a tremendous amount of fear within the United States government, and they feared that they couldn't trust Americans. Now, specifically, these Americans had Japanese ancestry. Now, they were concerned that they wouldn't be loyal to Japan, and they would be loyal to Japan and not be loyal to the United States, even though they were American citizens. Now, it's interesting to note here that we were fighting not only Japan, but we were fighting Germany. This never happened to people who had German heritage, even those who came recently from Germany. This did not happen, but to the Japanese Americans, this absolutely did happen. President Roosevelt, he issues what's called an Executive Order 9066. Now, an executive order is very similar to a law. Now, remember, though, that Congress is the only government body that can create a law. But the president does have the authority, and many presidents have used this authority to issue what's called executive orders. Now, these are really temporary laws until usually Congress can go ahead and catch up and produce a law. But the president has the authority to issue what's called executive orders. Now, this executive order required all Japanese Americans who lived on the West Coast, they had to report to holding or what we call internment camps. And it's interesting, one of these camps was located near Delta, Utah. You can still go there today. There's really not a whole lot that's left there, but you can see where the homes were, or these shacks really, that the Japanese Americans were put in. And of course, these were surrounded by barbed wire guard fences. In Delta, some of the Japanese Americans were allowed to leave for the day, and they could go into Delta and do some work and things like that. These were not concentration camps. Be careful not to confuse those, any of the concentration camps that were in Germany. But in America, we hold ourselves to a much, much higher standard when it comes to civil liberties. And this clearly was a violation of the civil liberties of those Americans who happen to be of Japanese ancestry, Japanese heritage.
I thought it was a horrible thing to do, to evacuate Japanese American farmers from their property, telling them that at a certain date they'll have to leave the farm, take one pack or luggage with them, and report to the railroad station and put them to trains to be evacuated to an unknown place, to the detention camps in the West. It was a horrible thing.
It was a kind of strange feeling that here I was fighting for our country, and my parents and brother and sister were in a friendly country behind barbed wires. I visited their camp, and it had barbed wire enclosure all around the camp. It had watchtowers every 200 yards or so, and a sentry guard and a guard at the gate. I think that gave us more reason to fight for our country. We had reason to go back and prove to our country that we are loyal. And move back to the West Coast with heads held high and be proud of the fact that we were Japanese Americans that fought for our country even under those trying circumstances.